Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is James Falkner from Liferay, and with me is Maciej Przepióra.
That's right.
I get that right, from Vaadin. And we're very happy to have you guys take time out of your day today to join us and learn more about building modern apps with Liferay. So a quick agenda before we get started. Mac and I will do some brief introductions on what is Liferay, what is Vaadin, why they're so good together. We'll talk about some real stuff, so we'll show you guys some real code. We'll get to the hands-on stuff. And then we'll wrap up with some roadmap information about kind of what's coming in our communities. And then finally, we'll have a Q&A session where you guys can ask any kinds of questions that you want. And we'll have a bit of a surprise at the end to kind of spice things up a bit. So again, welcome. So I'll start. So let's cut to the quick slides. Today we'll be talking about Liferay and Vaadin. So what is Liferay? So Liferay is the world's leading Java open source platform for building websites, also known as Liferay Portal. The company began about 10 years ago. Now we've grown to around 5 million downloads, 500,000 deployments. We have lots of offices around the world. We're up to 500 employees. We have a very large open source community, and as the open source community manager, I'm very happy to see that. So thanks to all of you for being a part of that. And we have a very active community. In fact, Vaadin is one of those main actors in that community. But a little bit about Liferay itself. So Liferay is an enterprise portal, so that means we have features for big companies and small companies. It's very lightweight. It's a small download. It's around 250 megabytes. Open source, 100% open source. It's LGPL. And it's compatible with pretty much anything you can throw at it, no matter which app server, operating system, database, browser, plugins, you name it, we can do it. And we have several out-of-the-box integrations for enterprise software. And then you can also build your own, and we have several available. Okay, so quick features. So it's a portal, as I mentioned. So what that means is we manage users, we manage permissions, we manage pages, we manage roles, we manage the mobile frameworks that we use. It's a very modern user interface. We have new integrations with Twitter Bootstrap in the latest version. So the main portal stuff is there. We also have web content management for creating pages, social collab features like wikis and blogs, and then of course the integration bits with your enterprise software. So you get all of that in one big box for around 250 megabytes. And then as you add stuff on, it can grow, of course. But that's all the stuff you get. If you don't get what you need out of the box, you can go to our marketplace to get stuff that you need. So Liferay 6.2 is the latest version, which we'll be demoing today. Released late last year. We kind of focused on 4 main areas. I'm going to hit a couple of them briefly, and then we'll move over to Vaadin. Well, for Liferay, the user interface, we did a huge overhaul in the user interface. Lots of new features for mobile. We've added a bunch of features in web content, and then the platform itself. So the underlying portal got some interesting stuff. But the main thing we focus, as you can see here, as we're in our user experience war room, is that we made the portal, we made the information easier to digest and easier to use. So a lot of the menus that you see, the control panel, the add applications menu, all of these things have been given kind of a workover, not just the look, but also the information architecture and how things are presented to you. Makes it much easier to use. So quickly, here's a quick screenshot of the mobile stuff. So standard, typical user interface with a calendar and some images. Then as you squeeze it down, the mobile stuff takes over. So this is kind of the main mobile responsiveness of Liferay. And that also happens on mobile devices and on the desktop. If you want to see what it looks like in your desktop, you click the preview button now in 6.2 and you get a nice little mobile preview. Document management and web content management have gotten several new features like drag and drop, subscriptions to folders, internationalization features. Liferay is often used as a document repository to store documents and serve them out. We also got some other minor features like a new template editor for editing web content, templates, and application display templates, kind of developer features directly in the portal. Very nice to use. New calendar, a whole new overhaul of a calendar, new user interface, of course. You can invite people, you can integrate with iCal and CalDAV, you can mount calendars, and you can also manage calendars for resources like projectors or something like that. Okay, so quick screenshots of real sites, because that's all fake, right? That's all stuff that we put together for demos. These are real sites, real companies using Liferay in production. So Team Beachbody, I'm just going to flip through these real quick. Let's see, what's the next one? Yeah, so this kind of shows you how they construct the site, right? They're portlets, and portlets are an important facet for both Liferay and Vaadin. This is what a site looks like without, and this is what a site looks like if you actually look at what is made up of, what makes the individual page content, like the portlets. Some things are navigation, some things are applications, some things are actually web content. Another one, Sprouts, is a kind of a retailer for food, and there's a store locator, there's all kinds of coupons that can pop up and so forth. The Globe is a GIS integration, so global or a geographic information services where you can visualize data. Toulouse is a local government site. Let's see, the Mayfair Hotel in London, a high-class hotel. I'm not sure if maybe we could have one of our events in the future at this hotel. Maybe not. Maybe. I'm not sure. Depends on the budget. And then a couple of sites that may look familiar. A banking site from Finland. And then lastly, this framework called Vaadin, which we'll be talking about, also uses Liferay for their website. So I'm going to hand things over to Mac, and he's going to give you the quick introduction to Vaadin. So Mac, take it away.
Those of you who know Vaadin, bear with me, but there are some people who do not know Vaadin yet. So what is Vaadin? What about the name? So the name actually comes from Finnish word, which means female mountain reindeer. But it also can mean in Finnish, I insist. Okay, so what is Vaadin actually? That's a user interface framework, Java based, that you can use to write rich web applications. And it's component based, so you'll see later in this webinar what does this mean, how you write your code. But it provides lots of building blocks that you can actually use to write your application. Lots of ready-made components that you can use. There are two things that we actually try to achieve with Vaadin. That's developer productivity, so that you can focus on developing your application, making the interaction meaningful, and a really nice, rich user experience, really nice visuals for the application. So how does it work? If you take a look on our logo, that's obviously a head of a reindeer, but when you turn it 90 degrees, you can see that there are two markups or two braces that we combine in the logo. One of them is the brace, and another is pointy brace.
Bracket. No.
Bracket.
Yeah, angle bracket.
Angled bracket, exactly. And what we want to convey with that logo is that, well, you can have both of those, but if you prefer Java, you can stay with Java. And let's take a look on sample applications that you can write with Vaadin. For example, it is pretty much easy to write an application that looks like this. So does it look familiar?
Yes, I think I've seen that one before.
But that's actually a browser application. Oh. Did you know that?
No.
That's a Vaadin application that is styled to look like iTunes, yeah. But it still runs in a browser, and it still is HTML and JavaScript application. Okay, so you might wonder, okay, if this is a browser UI framework, what are the desktop browsers? What are the browsers that we do support with Vaadin? And previous version of Vaadin, Vaadin 6, supported IE6 and IE7. That has faded out of support right now. But we still support IE8 and upper, and all other major browsers like Safari, WebKit-based browsers, Chrome, Firefox, or Opera. We also do support mobile browsers like Safari on iPad, Chrome on iPad. We do support Android browsers and Windows Mobile too. And with the latest version of Vaadin, 7.2, we also do support Windows Phone and IE11. Okay, the framework itself is pretty much a small thing. We do not provide lots of components, but if you want to achieve more, if you want to have some special components that aren't in the core, there is so-called directory on our site, and it's a home for various add-ons and components that you can use to develop your application. Some of them are open source, most of them. There are also some commercial add-ons, like for example Vaadin charts that will be shown later during this webinar. Okay, so you might wonder, I've already told you that it's a server-side UI framework, so how does it work? Well, it actually is quite nice to use. If you ever used Swing API to write a desktop application, then things probably will be familiar to you, because you just compose your UI using simple classes that are components, and then you use events and event listeners to actually get the code to execute the whatever logic you want. So that's pretty much different from usual web development. Okay, so if the user starts the application, he navigates to a web page that hosts your application, what happens then? You get your initial HTML, a bootstrap JavaScript file downloaded. It also downloads the CSS for the application. And there is so-called widget set, because we need some kind of a client-side engine that runs on the browser, and we call that engine a widget set. That's a result of WIT compilation. So we use WIT compiler to compile Java code into JavaScript, and this JavaScript is a WIT module, and then it is downloaded when the application bootstraps, and it's called widget set in our parlance. So as you can see, that widget set can take about half a megabyte. So what happens when we interact with the application? The basic idea is that we transmit everything to the server side. So any event that happens on the client side gets broadcasted to the server side. When I input Jonas into a text field, we get an event on the server side, and this event is sent by the widget set to the server side. This event conveys only the part that has changed. So we get actually a change in the state of the application, and that's pretty much this. So you can see that the communication is pretty lightweight. The application itself is not very chatty. So what happens when this event is sent to the server side is that we get our event listener invoked, and then, well, the server side just executes, and in this case we want to show a notification with a value that was in the text field, that was put by the user into the text field. So we execute notification.show, that just shows the notification, and inside as an argument we get the value from the text field. So that's what happens. There is a notification that is displayed, and the response too is really small, because it's just a small information that is sent to the widget set to the client-side engine. Okay, so now display notification that has this text in it. So you might wonder, what are the benefits of using Vaadin as your UI framework? First of all, you can use pretty much every language that runs on a JVM. That includes Groovy, that includes Scala. Actually, there is a pretty nice add-on that is called Scaladin. You don't need browser plugins to run your application. You don't have to install anything like a Flash player or whatever Java applet plugin.
Also known as security holes.
Yeah, that's right. Because that's Java, you can run on servlet containers, you can run on portlet containers. Most of the clouds that support Java, that's open for you. You can develop with whatever IDE you want to. If you like Eclipse, go with Eclipse. There is a nice plugin for Vaadin. There's an IntelliJ IDEA plugin. There is a plugin for NetBeans. If you want to dive into command line, that's okay. We've got Maven to cover you, and you can also use Ant and Ivy as a combo to get your dependencies. Okay, you can use whatever you like as your data backend. You can use Java EE, you can use Spring, you can build your application on top of OSGI. You might wonder, okay, so that's a nice framework. What's the future of this framework? So actually, we're planning a couple of feature releases. Those are minor releases. First of all, there's a new theme for the applications, that Valo theme. I think we're gonna present it today. So there's also a new component that is coming with with next release after 7.3. That's data grid. I think we have one of the most advanced data components, the table, but it needs to be retrofitted. So we're developing a new component, the data grid. And of course, there might be some other features coming for 7.x line, but we've already planned pretty much what we want to see in Vaadin 8. There will be some breaking changes, so we'll be transitioning to using GWT 3. We're gonna drop support for older versions of IE, so only 10 and more, because, well, the point being here is that we want to have access to HTML5 features, and
right.
IE 10 is pretty decent in that case. And we also will probably drop support for older versions of Java, because GWT 3 is going to move to Java 8. Okay, so
enough of the slides.
Yeah, enough of the slides.
So Vaadin, really great UI platform. Liferay, a really great portal platform. The combination of the two. How do you develop for these? So we're going to show you the easiest way to get started with developing real applications with Vaadin and Liferay. So I'm going to start off, kind of show you what's the current state of the art in terms of IDEs. So we're using Eclipse here. Again, there's plugins for IntelliJ and NetBeans and for the command line, but we're going to stick with Eclipse. So Liferay, applications written on Liferay are typically portlets, and portlets are small user interface components that go on a web page. So to build a portlet, you typically write some Java, and you do so in an IDE. And so we have a plugin for Liferay called Liferay IDE. It's a plugin for Eclipse called Liferay IDE, which makes it easy to build portlets. It kind of sets stuff up for you.
And what if I am a hardcore NetBeans user?
If you're a hardcore NetBeans user, so Liferay portlets, there's a standard, there's a portlet standard, right? So you don't have to use Eclipse, you don't have to use our plugin, you can use NetBeans again, IntelliJ. They all kind of know about Java EE application structure, so they can create portlets just as easy. What the Liferay IDE gives you is some wizards, some portlet creation wizards. There's other plugin types like hooks and themes and so forth in Liferay IDE. So And in fact, we have Vaadin support. So I'm going to show you really quickly how you build a Vaadin app today using Liferay 6.2. So I've got a server up and running already here on localhost. So I've already installed the plugin, and if you don't have the Liferay Eclipse plugin, you go to install new software and you type in or copy and paste this special repository here. This is our Eclipse repository. You can get this off of our website. So if you go to liferay.com and then click on products and Liferay IDE, you'll find this link here, so you don't have to quickly write it down. So you plug it in, and then what shows up is Liferay IDE itself, which I've already installed. We also have a Maven integration for Liferay IDE, which we'll get to later. And we also have a mobile SDK plugin. If you're developing mobile apps for Android using Eclipse, you can plug this in. It gives you access to the Liferay APIs directly from your mobile environment, so Java APIs for calling Liferay's JSON web services. Okay, so I've already installed it, so I'm not going to install it again. Once you've installed it, now I can start going and creating servers, and I can create projects. So I'm just going to create a quick plugin project. I'll give it a name, my new project. One of the things that we support is Maven. Unfortunately, we don't currently support Maven for Vaadin projects, and that's where Mac is going to show us the way on there. But for now, for demo purposes, we're going to use an Ant-based deployment. We're going to choose my out-of-the-box Vaadin version, which is Vaadin 6.8 in Liferay 6.2. Click Next, and here I get to choose Vaadin. Click Finish. It creates the project, and it goes and creates those Java EE structures like web.xml. It creates the files necessary for Liferay, like portlet.xml, and it injects the correct settings to make the portlet a Vaadin portlet. So once it's created, I can right-click, or I can just drag and drop it onto my server. So if I drag and drop this right on my OOTB Vaadin, it goes and deploys it. You can see the log file here. Now if I bring it up in my browser, reload, I'll sign in, test. By the way, don't use that in production. Everyone knows it. I'll create a new page with Liferay 6.2. It's super easy to create pages. Oops, if I type it correctly, new page, add page, and now I can add my application that I just created. So it's under sample, and here it is right here. I can drag and drop it directly on here, and then it appears, hello, my new project. It's a very simple Vaadin application. It's got one label on it. Let me show you that again because I quickly went past. Okay, so very easy to create a Vaadin project using Vaadin 6.8, which is not the latest version, using Ant, which is not the preferred development environment of many developers these days. The question now is, what if I want to use Vaadin 7? What if I want to upgrade Vaadin to Vaadin 7? I want to use Maven. You can't use Liferay IDE currently, so Mac's going to show us the best solution for this.
Yeah.
It's a really great one too, by the way.
Okay, so the basics for the solution is that we're going to use Maven, and there is a really nice archetype that you can use to start with. I'm going to present it right now. So yeah, let's create a new project inside Eclipse. I also got Liferay IDE installed, so let's create a new Maven project. That's Vaadin archetype Liferay portlet. It's in the central, so actually you don't need to download anything. It's just in Maven Central.
And this is a new archetype that Vaadin just published, last night.
I think it was released last night.
Yeah. So if you haven't heard of it, don't be surprised. But go check it out. It's very good.
Okay, so I'll just create a new Maven project with that. Let's call it a com example. And artifact, let's say Vaadin application. Okay, so as usual for every Maven project you need to set up some properties like version, group ID, artifact ID, and a package. We also provide a set of properties that are actually not required by Maven per se, but are really nice to have so that you can start with a correct set of files. So the Vaadin version, it's currently it defaults to 7.2.0, which is the latest Vaadin version. The name of your UI class, the theme that you want to use, and a couple of portlet descriptions, portlet properties that are used in portlet files.
And you can change these later, right? Like if you...
Yeah, you still can edit the file.
Yeah.
And if you have a Liferay IDE installed, you can use this nice UI for that.
Perfect.
So we're going to show that later. But you might wonder, okay, so where are properties for Liferay? Like what is the deployment server path, or what is the version of Liferay I want to use? So in this case, we followed the convention that was set by Liferay, that you need to have a Maven profile first. So we go to your, I'll go to my settings file. Okay. So actually what you should have before you start development is to have a Maven profile with a couple of those properties that will be used by the project itself. So that's a profile that you will activate when developing this project based on this archetype. So,
and that's actually required even if you're not using this archetype, but if you're using the
whatever
Liferay ones.
Whatever Liferay archetype you use.
Okay.
So just to make things easier for existing Liferay developers, we thought that's the best way to deal with that. Okay, so let's get back to creating a new project. Maven. Okay. So I'm gonna create a new Liferay portlet that is based on Vaadin. Let's go. Okay. So when I click finish, it's actually creating a demo effect. Let's see. Yeah, it's here. That's Vaadin application. So that's a regular Maven project. It has a POM file that has some sensible defaults set already.
And those, some of them come from your settings XML, right?
Yes. So actually, what I do need to do is to explicitly tell Eclipse to use a specific Maven profile. Yeah. So that will be Vaadin. No plugin and apply. Okay. Because when you create your project and your profile is not active, you will end up with some errors. Okay, Maven cannot resolve the dependency or something like that. Then just don't forget to set the profile first.
And you can have multiple profiles, right?
Yes,
or
that's right.
Deployments.
That's right. Okay, so as you can see, that's just a regular Vaadin application. There is a UI. There is a UI that you can just code inside. It's like you would develop your normal Vaadin application with that. And let's actually run this application on Liferay. So I'm just gonna drag and drop on my running Liferay. Okay. Let's see. Let's copy in. And you probably end up wondering why your application doesn't work. I'll show you why. Let's just go to Liferay installation. Let's add a new page. Okay, let's add this page and let's go and let's try to add this Vaadin application portlet that I have just written. Let's search for that. Yep, That's it. It's added. Oh. So what has happened is that I haven't compiled the application fully before deploying it to the portal, since this archetype makes some assumptions about your environment. That was, yeah, that's still the same error. When you have a Vaadin application, I've already mentioned that you need to have a client-side engine. Yeah. And this engine is generated when you do a full build of your Maven project. So actually what I do need before deploying is, let's just undeploy it from the server first. Okay. So I need to run a Maven build. Okay. Oh, sorry. Again, run Maven build, clean and install is just enough. And what happens during this build is that the client-side engine, the widget set, is being compiled by Git compiler. So it takes all the Java classes that are written for the client side and translates them to JavaScript. It optimizes the CSS, and it also creates a new CSS theme file. As you can see, we have this annotation add theme, which means that we can use Vaadin theme infrastructure to build the theme for the application.
So Liferay that you're running has Vaadin 6 installed. How are you able to run Vaadin 7?
Well, there is a little trick here. As you mentioned, Vaadin gets it is shipped with Liferay, and it is Vaadin 6.8. But what we're doing here is that we create a so-called, I'd call it a self-contained application. So we're not using the resources, Vaadin resources from the Liferay installation. Mm-hmm. We put all those resources into the application itself, into the WAR file that gets deployed on the server. So the Vaadin theme actually ends up in this WAR file. The client-side engine, the widget set, JavaScript, ends up in the WAR file for the application. But we need a small trick here too, because we need a custom Vaadin portlet. Vaadin, by default, is configured to use resources from the portal itself. Right. So we need to override this behavior, and we can achieve that with a custom Vaadin portlet. This custom Vaadin portlet is already included in the archetype, so you don't really need to write anything. It just gets included in your project, and the setup for portlet, the portlet.xml, actually uses this custom Vaadin portlet instead of regular Vaadin portlet. So this custom Vaadin portlet does the job with telling the Vaadin framework that, okay, we should get the static files from context path. And that's pretty much all the trick here.
So all of Vaadin 7 is, or the client side is baked into the WAR file.
Right. That's right.
Which is great for isolation. Now,
yes, if you want to use different version of Vaadin.
Yeah.
If you've invested in Vaadin 6, for example, and right now think that you should convert to Vaadin 7, then that's actually a good idea to have those things separated, so that actually every portlet can use different version of Vaadin.
Yeah, you can slowly upgrade instead of having to big bang upgrade everything at once.
Yes, that's right.
Deal with it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So that's the Maven archetype.
Okay.
I think me myself, I use it. I developed it. So I might be blowing my own trumpet here, but I think it's very nice for starting development.
Absolutely. I think the isolation stuff is really great. I mean, and if you have 30 or 40 portlets and you don't want a copy of the same widget set and same client-side engine in every single app, you can put one copy if you upgrade. The upgrading documentation has some issues. We're going to be fixing those so you can do it. But very soon it'll be much easier to upgrade to Vaadin 7 and having one Vaadin 7 copy.
Yeah, and there's one more thing, a nice thing about this archetype is that Liferay IDE actually picks it up as a Liferay project.
Right.
Which means that you can use Liferay Maven tasks or goals for build, so that you can use, you can open Liferay files. For example, let's open Liferay plugin packages, and you still get this nice UI to edit your files, which is very nice. And well, kudos to Liferay for that. That you can actually actually see that this is a Liferay project.
So, so speaking of Liferay, I'd like to show quickly how you integrate with or the beginnings of how you integrate with Liferay. So if you could switch back to mine real quick. So what I want to show is an application using several features of Vaadin that allow real integration with Liferay. So Max showed how you get up and running with Vaadin, with Maven, with Liferay, with latest versions of everything, which is awesome. Now the question is, what if you want to write an application that uses more than a hello world button, right? So let's start looking at some more code here. So I have a demo application that's running. I'm going to show you the application first, and then we'll just kind of talk about briefly what it's doing. So this application we used, it's a visualization application, visualizing data from sensors that we placed around a venue at a recent Liferay event. And so this Vaadin UI allows you to choose an event, like for example at Benelux, it was in Amsterdam a couple of days ago. It goes out, it fetches data, shows it in a chart, a nice graphical chart. You can zoom in, you can inspect the numbers, you can also click on things, and when you click on things, something else happens, right? So this little graph gets filled in with some numbers. You can click on an individual row and get a kind of a zoomed in representation of where you're clicking to kind of see some detail. So it's kind of a master detail chart, if you will. And then you can also look at individual beacon data. It's not important to understand the beacon stuff. It's just a representative of the data. But this is an application that uses Liferay integration, both in terms of getting access to the data and in terms of the inter-process communication, because these are portlets. This map is over here. This is not a Vaadin portlet. These are Vaadin portlets talking to each other and talking to non-Vaadin portlets. You'll notice when I change the selector here, the map changes. These things change down here. And so there's a lot of IPC going on. So I just want to kind of show you really quick how that works. So I have this project already loaded in Eclipse. And let me show you the classes. So there's three. There's three apps. So the first one, we get information from Liferay through the Vaadin portlet service. This is a built-in API in Vaadin. It's a generic API that maps nicely to Liferay. So for example, with Liferay, I can get the company ID, one of the most commonly needed things in Liferay to get at its database is the company ID. You also need group ID. There are a couple of other things. So you can do, pretty much anything. Like you can even get the user. portalutil.get user, and then you pass the same object here, and you can get the user. There's a try catch I need to add here. So it's very easy to get at Liferay kind of state. You can also get at Liferay data, which is what those graphs are doing. And you do that through Liferay's APIs, like XYZ local service util or XYZ service util.
So you can still use Service Builder.
Yeah, so any service generated by Service Builder you can use. In fact, I'm using a Service Builder service called Expando, which is a built-in service in Liferay to get at the data. So you can see, like down here, I'd call Expando service local something or other somewhere in here. Expando service or Expando local, I think it's called, or Expando something. Yeah, so for example here, I'm calling Expando value local service util. Mm-hmm. I'm getting the data out of Liferay and then giving it to Vaadin in the form that Vaadin wants to see, which is what they're called Vaadin data containers, which I think will go into more detail. So I essentially get the data out of Liferay. It's kind of like a Java bean, and then I hand it to Vaadin charts for processing and showing the data. So this is a really easy way to integrate Liferay with Vaadin. You can call any service builder service, you can call any Liferay API. Vaadin is there, Liferay is there, it's very easy. This application is a read-only application. I'm only reading data. So then the question is, what happens if you have a real data-driven application that users need to edit data? So I think Mac is going to show us how to do that.
So let's take a look on simple application that I hacked out. Let's go to browser first. Okay, so a very common demo application that we usually do with Liferay is an address book. That's not strictly an address book because it lists only 3 items inside or 3 properties. That's just name and company for each of the users. But that application actually takes the data from the Liferay core about the users that are registered to this portal, displays it in a nice table. You can actually filter this table. So let's search for lax, for example. The data gets filtered. And it also allows you to choose a row from this table and edit some data. So let's rename test to my name. So let's put it here like that. Let's click save. So it gets updated here in the table.
Does Liferay believe you?
Let's see. So Liferay database got actually updated with that. So
cool. Using the Liferay API.
Yes,
not
that's Liferay API.
Database.
It's not going past Liferay.
Yeah.
We use Liferay util class.
That's
to do
good.
That.
Yeah.
So let's just take a look on the code. Okay. So getting the data. You put the data in so-called bin item container, which is a part of our data binding layer, Vaadin layer, that is used to pass the data from whatever source you use to the components. And we just get using user local service util. Probably shouldn't do that, but still, using this service util class, I just get all the users that are in the database. I get a list, and I stuff that list into bin item container, and then the table uses this bin item container as a data source. So that's the read part.
So one question on that.
Yeah.
So what happens if you have 100 million users in your database?
Oh, okay. Well, then you would probably not use bin item container because this is an in-memory container.
Right.
Okay. Everything that is in this container is actually in the memory. But you could consider other containers that we have either in the core or as add-ons in our directory. Okay. I would probably recommend a lazy query container, which is it's not in the core, but it is a really nice add-on available from our directory, and pretty much everyone who has needs like this would probably end up using a lazy query container. Okay, lazy query container, it needs only 2 things from the data source. It needs to have a way to know the number of rows in the data source, and then to be able to get a range from the data source, and that's all the lazy query container.
And I believe Liferay has the APIs for both of those. So
yes, well, at least the user local service util get with user local service util, you get both of those.
Yep.
So you can get number of users and you can get a range of users.
Right.
Okay, so that's the read part, the table, and the write part. It's even easier because we've got everything wired up with Vaadin data binding, and we just have a click listener on save button that gets the bean that bags the form and uses the update user on user local service util.
Right.
So that's pretty much easy to achieve. The whole application, let's see how many lines of code is that. Well, it's something like 200 lines of code. So I think that's pretty much
a simple
nice,
application.
Yeah, nice for us, such a simple application, and it's easy to actually get it coded.
Yeah.
And you can also go to GitHub and find this application in GitHub. So let me show you. That's in the GitHub. We're gonna post it, the address in the comments after the webinar, so don't worry, you don't need to write it down. But that's just a simple address book application, regular Vaadin application that actually uses Liferay APIs. I think we probably will work on it a bit more to show other scenarios, but that's a simple application you can get a look on to grasp the idea of developing with Liferay and Vaadin.
Yeah, so that's great. So you can read, write, you can integrate with Liferay APIs, you can do inter-process or inter-portlet communication between Vaadin and non-Vaadin portlets. That's really, a powerful way to kind of make a real enterprise application on a real portal. So speaking of real enterprise-y applications,
yeah, I've got something to show.
Vaadin has a new one. I was wondering if you could show us.
Yeah, so most of you that got mail before this webinar and followed the link in the mail were actually forwarded to Tori. Tori, that's a Finnish word for forum. And Tori is an application that we have written to advertise this integration with Liferay. That's a regular portlet that uses Vaadin, and we can pretty much use it as a regular portlet, but still that's Vaadin application, so you get all the niceties of Vaadin application in it.
And the backend is still the Liferay forum, right?
The backend still uses the services built for Liferay forum. So
right.
Yeah, that's just a really nice forum.
Yeah, that's great.
You can use to make it nicer for your community if you're running a Liferay forum.
Very cool. Now, how do we get this application if we want to use it?
That's really easy. You need to go to Liferay marketplace. So let's look for Vaadin applications. And there it is, Tori forum.
Nice. So you can download it?
Yes, you can download it and you can install inside your Liferay installation and just start using it. As I said before, it uses Liferay services that are already in your portal. So it's just UI. It's just UI.
So even if you have messages already, you can just drop it in and
it's
go.
a drop-in replacement.
Very nice, very nice. Cool. Let's see, what else? Let's do some roadmap talk. Everybody loves roadmaps. Nobody likes to give dates about stuff.
Yeah, well, nothing is. It's open source.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it's ready when it's ready. No. So we've talked a lot about portlets, and when I say portlet, I'm sure most of you know that there's a standard behind that portlet called the Portlet standard. Surprisingly enough, the current version of the Portlet standard is 2.0. The next version of the Portlet standard is 3, and that is being worked on. There's an expert group, it's JSR 362, I believe, and we're participating in that. And so I kind of wanted to give you a quick update of what's coming from the Portlet 3 world, because Liferay in particular, we have a strong dependency on portals. It's in the name of the product, so we're very interested in what happens here. So Portlet 3, thus far, there's kind of two areas, one kind of minor, one a bit more major. The first one is the parameter API. So in Portlet 2, there have been some misunderstandings in terms of parameters. So in the servlet environment, you have get parameter, right? You get a parameter foo, and you get a string back. You can create URLs that have parameters on the end with, question mark, foo equals bar. That's easy. In the portlet world, you have different phases. You have action phase, you have render phase, you have event phase. And there are parameters associated with those phases, and they're not always the same. So people were oftentimes doing a get parameter in their action phase. They would get a parameter based off of a form submission. They would try and do that again in the render phase, and when it's gone, what happened? You get null. So some of the naming is going on in the API, renaming, I'm sorry, to make it more clear what's happening. You can actually follow this link here. There's actually, if you follow it, you'll get a Java doc with diffs, which the expert group kindly puts together, and it's kind of being maintained throughout the evolution of Portlet 3, where you can see what's new, what's gone, what's changed. So for example, for action requests, you can kind of see the new methods here, get action parameters instead of get parameter, which will actually be deprecated. So browse through that, bookmark it, and check it every once in a while if you're interested in what's going on in the Portlet world. The second one is a little bit more interesting, and we're not going to spend much time on it. There's actually a lot behind the scenes, but in the Portlet 2 world, portals and portlets existed on the server side. There was no client side whatsoever. You could write JavaScript in your portlet, which is totally fine.
I did that.
Several people do, but there's really no knowledge of what's going on the client side from the portal world, from the server world. And this Portlet 2 spec came out in 2008, I believe. Since then, rich client apps, JavaScript, browsers, mobile browsers, and desktop browsers have grown up. And the Portlet world has kind of not grown up yet. So in Portlet 3, we're looking at adding, bringing it into kind of the modern world. So there's a client side now to the Portlet world, and it's what's called a Portlet hub. Portlet client code can subscribe and receive events and update their state. One portlet performing an action can cause other portlets to change their state, which then gets communicated through this Portlet hub. Does that sound familiar to you?
Well, we're already doing that with Vaadin, pretty much. Well, we don't have interportlet communication, but I think there is an add-on for that.
Yeah, in fact, I used the add-on in the maps demo that you guys saw earlier.
Yeah, well, that sounds like Vaadin pretty much.
Yeah. So there's actually a link here at the bottom, and you can read in more detail about what's going on in this picture. But it's effectively, as I said, a client-side component that did not exist before, with an API that didn't exist, and then Portlet clients can register, and then events can kind of go through this bridge between the Portlet hub and the server-side container. There's all kinds of interesting things you can read through this document. There's also an interest email list if you want to get on and kind of watch and see what's going on. I'm not going to read through this. It's way too much for now. But I just kind of want to give you a heads up that the Portlet 3 is bringing kind of the portals into a more modern world.
So Web 2.0.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Finally.
Finally. So it's great to hear. So let's see, one more slide on futures or roadmap for Liferay. So we're currently at Liferay 6.2, which was released in November of last year, or December-ish timeframe. Liferay 7 is the next version that we're looking at. I put 2015. Again, this is roadmaps. All dates are subject to change. That's
no guarantees.
No guarantees. Liferay's track record, we'll put it in around 2015, like the real track record, not the marketing spin that sometimes companies give. So some of the new things, actually the first one, Portlet sandboxing, is available today. This effectively allows you to segregate your portlets into different processes. So in case one portlet dies, it doesn't bring your whole system down. It also lets you utilize your CPU more. So CPU utilization goes up on a single machine, and it kind of gives you some more resiliency. So that's available today in the marketplace. Just go there and search for Sandbox, probably. Content targeting is another big one coming up for Liferay in terms of like digital marketing or contextual content. So when a user logs in and they're from Finland, maybe they get, not just the Finnish language, but maybe they get content that is, maybe there's a sale on in all of your stores in Finland, something like that. That's a very simple example.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've already had something like that.
Yeah, that's a very simple example, but you can do things like if the user has visited 20 times and they've not bought anything, then give them a 10% off coupon, stuff like that, kind of more interesting things that happen there. So that's coming for 6.2 and for 7. I'm guessing sometime later this year. And then for Liferay 7, OSGI is a really big part of that. So there's a modularization effort which is going on, which will in fact be very good for Vaadin apps too, because everything becomes a module. Vaadin itself becomes a module, like the runtime Vaadin server becomes a module, so we can put Vaadin on the marketplace, for example. Okay. Or turn it into an OSGI bundle, which can easily be added or removed.
Yeah, Vaadin already supports OSGI environments.
Yep. Oh,
so
perfect. There you go. So, and you can do things like, right now with the Liferay site, even if you don't use blogs, you cannot remove that from Liferay it's just impossible to remove. You'd have to do surgery on jar files and it would be a nightmare. So like in Liferay 7, blogs becomes a module. So now you can rip blogs out. I shouldn't say rip, but gently,
remove them,
undeploy. And you don't have it. There's no code that could potentially have bugs. There's no attack vectors for hackers and so forth. So that's really good. And then lastly, background tasks. So Liferay's had the ability to schedule tasks through courts all the time, but now we're kind of making that a first-class citizen, giving a more robust way to schedule and inspect or introspect into a background task that's running, a long-running background task. This is used in particular for our staging feature. For a large site, when you push a staged version of that site out, it can take a long time. So this kind of exposes that for our developers. I think that's it for Liferay.
Let me be devil's advocate here. What about new web technologies, like, for example, WebSockets or supporting push? Yeah,
so the Portlets spec, they've talked about it, but they haven't made much progress on that front. They're kind of getting the other stuff in place first. They know that they need something like that, but it hasn't gotten far enough to kind of say exactly what it's going to look like, or whether it's most likely WebSockets, but we don't know for sure. Now, Vaadin supports WebSockets now. Right?
Well, we do support push, and latest release 7.2 added more to this push support, and we have multiple ways of supporting push. That might be WebSockets, that might be long polling, that might be many different ways. We achieve that by using Atmosphere.
Right.
And
we'll just integrate. You're on like Tomcat 7, you don't have WebSockets yet.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. But still, you can get push.
Well, you have their WebSockets, but not the official one. Okay. Okay, cool. So a little bit about the community, then we'll move to the Q&A. So Liferay and Vaadin have historically been pretty close since, 2009?
I think
when
so.
Jonas and Brian kind of got together and thought it would be a good idea to put Vaadin in Liferay. It's one of the more popular web frameworks used with Liferay. And so our communities have worked together a lot. So we have Vaadin in Liferay. We have Vaadin support in Liferay IDE. And you guys have support for Liferay directly in Vaadin as well.
That's true.
Yeah, so we're both open source projects. We benefit a lot from not only webinars like this and getting together and deciding things, but you guys using Vaadin with Liferay and telling us what's wrong, telling us how difficult it is to do things like upgrade to Vaadin 7 in Liferay. And so I see a lot of benefit to that, and I also see a lot of changes that happen. Like, for example, I think in Vaadin, you guys are going to make some small changes in the very near future to make Portlet integration better.
Yeah, well, no guarantees here, but still we're considering improving the API and API support for Portlets.
Because things changed in Vaadin 7, right?
Yes, the Vaadin 7 had some API removed or renamed and deprecated. We're going to fix that.
Very good.
We're working on that. Well, you've got the archetype, which is our first step into that. Yeah,
that's a really good addition. So we have, you guys put Tori in our marketplace, so that's very cool. So we have Vaadin apps for Liferay developers. There's Liferay plugins like the Liferay IPC add-on in the Vaadin add-on directory. So there's a lot of support for both. So if you go with Liferay plus Vaadin, there's not only a lot of potential features like the add-ons from Vaadin and Liferay, but there's support, there's companies, there's people behind it, there's community support, there's professional support both from Vaadin and from Liferay.
And I think you can benefit from both sides in terms of your productivity.
Yes, yeah. So
and then you get a synergy between the two.
Yeah. So I am not a core developer at Liferay, so I don't do coding every single day of the week. I was able to make a reasonably looking app that was data driven and used Vaadin in like a couple of hours. I was very impressed with Vaadin as far as the API. It's simple. It's simple to use, and I'm not a newbie, but I'm not a hardcore developer. So things that come easy to me, like to think that makes it even easier for everyone else. So yeah, Vaadin's really good. Okay, so let's move on to the Q&A. So let's see. We have a couple already that you guys added before the webinar began. So you want to take the first?
Okay, so there is a question from Life. Liferay is using a lot of JavaScript components from their Alloy UI library. Is it possible to use them in Vaadin application? Okay, so first of all, as far as I can think about that, Vaadin has a wide set of components in the core, and if you're not satisfied with what's in the core, you can always go to the directory. But if there is a specific Alloy UI component that you want to use in your Vaadin application, then you can basically use it as a JS library and integrate
wrap it with
wrap it with Vaadin specific code.
Yeah, because Alloy UI components a lot of times they're not already tied to Liferay; they're just generic components.
So let me open. Oh, sorry. Let's go. That's an example that my colleague Matti Tahvonen built, and that's an Alloy UI component wrapped.
Is that the data table?
Yeah, that's the data table, but still, let's open Visual Editor.
Oh, very nice.
That's a diagram builder widget from Alloy UI that is wrapped to actually be a JavaScript component used with Vaadin.
So anyone that uses Liferay workflow should look very familiar to them.
Yeah.
It's the same diagram editor we use in Liferay itself. So.
Yeah, but it actually is something that right now is integrated with Vaadin, and you can save it to database.
Very cool.
Okay, next question.
Yeah, I'll take this one. So Marcus asks, are there any security concerns that should be taken into account when using Vaadin as a portlet UI? So I think Vaadin does a great job of making it easy to make applications, right? You don't have to know JavaScript. You don't have to know CSS. You don't have to know about browser stuff. You write simple Java applications and then they just magically work. And that magic is taken care of by Vaadin, which means they take care of things like security like CSRF, tokens to keep things secure. Also, in Liferay itself, there are security issues. So, for example, a lot of the apps we wrote were using this local service util classes, like user local service, right? That has zero permission checking in it. So it's great for demos, but in a real world, you'll want to use a different API, which you just basically take out the local part. And that will cause it to check permissions. So for example, if you're running in Liferay as an ordinary user without super user or omni-admin privileges, and you access a Vaadin application, and that Vaadin application is coded to use the correct security API or the service API, if you try and do something, you will not be able to do it if you don't have the access rights. Whereas with a local service, everyone can do it. So you kind of always want to make sure and use the local services when you're writing kind of real-world applications that will be used in an enterprise situation.
Okay.
So, and Liferay also does similar CSRF protections and things of that nature.
Let me add something to that about Vaadin itself. The basic measure that Vaadin takes to protect the application from malignant user or whatever attacks can come up people with is that the state of the application is kept on the server side. So you can tamper with the client side and it won't have an effect on your backend because client side is not non-authoritative.
That's good because Liferay kind of considers the client as always have been compromised.
Yeah.
So we just assume it's insecure too. So it's very good.
Okay. There is a question from Bruno. Is there some difference in portlet usage between version EE and CE that limits Vaadin framework?
So I can take that one, and I believe the answer is no. There's really nothing between CE and EE that can limit Vaadin in any way. So, okay, next question. Let's see. I see somebody typing a question in. Yeah, I think we already answered that one. How to manage Liferay permissions on Vaadin portlets? Yeah, so you manage Liferay permissions in Liferay, and then you make sure your Vaadin application uses the proper APIs to access data, which inherently checks those permissions. So that's kind of the answer to that one.
I'd say that if you want to write an application, a portlet that uses Liferay backend services, just write it as a regular portlet.
Yeah,
there's no difference.
Yep. So, and those permissions can be managed through Liferay's administrative interfaces like control panel, and there's a pretty extensive and granular way to manage permissions in Liferay. You can create roles, you can assign users to roles, and then you can assign permissions to those roles so that the users can do things or not.
Okay, another question about Vaadin from Jürgen. Is it possible to do responsive layouting in Vaadin portlets? I'd say that it's possible at least in two ways. With 7.2 that has been recently released, you can use CSS rules using an add-on or latest version 7.2, or you can have listeners on your application that actually run on the server side and have your Java logic for that on your server side. So that's pretty much possible.
Okay. Let's see. I think we want to do we do one more? Yeah. So I think we already answered this question, right? About IDEs.
The latest one.
Yeah. So you can use more than just Eclipse to develop Vaadin portlets. Let's see. This is one I have actually. So I can write my application. I can create a horizontal layout. I can add components to it. I like to say the grid bag layout from 1997. Can I do declarative UI programming?
Okay. There is an add-on for that. That's called Clara. It's written by our employee. And it does pretty much what you ask for. You can write XML code, declarative XML code that you then use to bind to. There are some annotations that you can use in your Java code to have event listeners involved.
So you can keep the business logic in code, but the UI comes in.
The UI, you can compose your UI with XML.
Very powerful, very powerful. Okay, I think, yes, we are...
There's one last thing.
One last thing. I forgot to push the button. You want to reveal the big secret?
Okay, so for those of you who have pre-registered for this webinar, we've got a small surprise. Check your emails in some time from now. You'll get a 20% discount on Vaadin charts and 10% Liferay developer conference discount. So just check your email, check your spam folders. I hope our mails don't end up there.
And DevCon is November 4th through 5th in Darmstadt, Germany, I believe. Yeah, November 4th in Germany. So
see you in Darmstadt.
Yes, absolutely. We'll see you guys.
Great.
Thank you very much for coming, and we'll take care. Bye-bye now from Turkey.
Bye.